Episode 6. Following a New Path. At last, the coach arrived in London. The city was huge, dirty, and full of people. I had never seen anything like it before. I went to Mr. Jagger's office, which was not far from the place where the coach to London had stopped. It was early afternoon when I found an open door with the name Mr. Jaggers on it. I walked in and saw a man sitting behind a desk. "Is Mr. Jaggers here?" I asked nervously. "You're Mr. Pip, aren't you?" the man said. "Mr. Jaggers is out, but he will be back soon. If you want to, you can take a seat in his office," and he pointed to a small, dark room behind him. Mr. Jaggers finally arrived. "Mr. Pip, you will stay at Barnard's Inn with Mr. Herbert Pocket," he said. Herbert was Mr. Matthew Pocket's son. Mr. Jaggers then gave me some money to spend during my first few months in London. It seemed a lot to me. "I will be watching the way you spend the money, but of course you'll get into debt sooner or later," he said coldly. My new home was not the sort of thing I had expected. It was in a dirty street and was small, old, and looked empty. I opened the front door and walked to the top of the stairs. There was another door with the name Mr. Herbert Pocket on it, but no one was at home. Minutes later, a young man with a friendly face appeared on the stairs. He was carrying some paper bags. "Your name's Mr. Pip, isn't it?" he said as he started to open the door. "I've just been to the market. You haven't been waiting for long, have you?" My mouth fell open in surprise as I looked at the young man. Herbert went on, "My father says you will be living here with me for a few—" He had suddenly stopped talking and was looking at me. "You're the boy I had a fight with at Miss Havisham's house," he cried. "And you," I said, "are the boy in the grey suit." He put the paper bags down and we both started to laugh. Later, as we were eating dinner, Herbert told me about the day we had met. Miss Havisham had asked me to visit her, and I didn't mind going. I thought she might make me rich, but she didn't, and I thought she might want me to marry Estella. You met Estella, didn't you? But no. And who is Estella? Why does she live with Miss Havisham? I asked. It's all a bit complicated. Herbert began. Estella isn't related to Miss Havisham. She is adopted. She's a horrible young woman. Miss Havisham hates men, and as a result, she has taught Estella to do the same. He went on, Miss Havisham is my father's cousin. When Miss Havisham's father died, she and her brother became very rich. But her brother spent all of his money and therefore got into debt. He lived a bad life and had friends who were not gentlemen. Miss Havisham fell in love with one of these friends, and they soon made the decision to get married. My father was against the marriage, but Miss Havisham did not listen. But they didn't get married, did they? I asked. No. On the morning of their wedding day, the man sent Miss Havisham a letter which simply said he could not marry her. And then he disappeared. A few days later, I went to Mr. Matthew Pocket's house, and my education began. At the house, I met Bentley Drummle, another young man who was living and studying there. I did not like him. He was rich, proud, and very rude. Although I now had a room in Mr. Pocket's house, I also decided to keep the room I had with Herbert. He and I had become friends, and he was very helpful. He showed me how to dress, talk, and eat like a gentleman. Soon after my education had begun, Mr. Jaggers invited Bentley Drummle and me to his house for dinner. Mr. Jaggers gave us some expensive wine, and we ate a delicious meal. The evening was going well, but then I became angry with Drummle, who had drunk too much. He was being rude and kept saying how clever and strong he was. Soon we were shouting at each other. Mr. Jaggers had a servant, a woman with long dark hair and strange eyes. As she was picking the empty plates up, Mr. Jaggers suddenly cried, "If you want to see real strength, look at Molly's arms." I turned and saw that he was holding her arms. She looked very frightened. "There's power in these arms," Mr. Jaggers said. "They are the strongest arms I have ever seen." Then he said, "You can go now, Molly." The evening had not ended well, and I now disliked Bentley Drumler even more. I was happy when, after only 4 weeks, Drumley's studies finished, and he left Mr. Pocket's house. Several months later, a letter arrived from Biddy. Joe was going to come to see me the following day. I had not written to Joe and Biddy or visited them since I had come to London. I wanted to forget my old life, and I was not sure that I wanted to see Joe. Joe arrived the next day, and he was dressed in his best clothes. He looked very happy to see me, but it was clear that he felt very uncomfortable. He refused to take a seat and kept calling me Sir. "Joe, you must stay for dinner," I told him. "No, sir, that would not be right. I have come to see that you are well and to tell you something. Then I must go back home, because London is not for me. I am not a gentleman." I said nothing. "Sir Pip, the thing I have to tell you is that Miss Havisham would like you to visit her. Estella has come home and wants to see you," said Joe carefully. Estella wanted to see me, and Miss Havisham had asked me to visit. Therefore, I thought, she must want me to marry Estella. I was very happy and made the decision to visit them the very next day.